you. Thank you. Thanks for coming, everyone. I'll speak in English, as you said, because we're taping it for YouTube. So everything you say now will go in the pages of history. So if you want to, do, you can just interrupt me and have questions. It can be more like a dialogue if you want. It's more interesting, I think, for you too as well, instead of just one way. So if you have any questions, just raise your hand or just speak, interrupt. Doesn't matter. It's quite nice and intimate here. So she said I will speak about exponential growth technology and Bitcoin, and that's what I'll do. I only have about, actually, I have 30 minutes, so I'll try to be short. There's a lot of stuff here. It's actually taken from a bigger presentation, so I actually have a lot of topics I want to cover. I probably won't make all of it, so I'll just go as far as I come, and then we just stop. So I'll go through disruptive trends, and we'll flip a little bit around. I'll just jump to Bitcoin, and then talk about exponential growth of technology. So 5,000 years ago, not much happened in the century. But today, a lot happened in 6 months. If you go back even 20 years, so let's go back 19 years, 1996. I was in high school at this point. I don't know if you heard of this company called Kodak. I'm sure you did, and you all know the story. So I'll go through it quickly. In 1996, so 19 years ago, they had 140,000 employees. They had $28 billion market cap, and they had 85% of the market share of the camera market in the US. And then there was this little Finnish company called Nokia, which appeared in '92, and they launched the first mobile phone. And obviously, so what does a mobile phone company has to do with Kodak in the camera market? And again, we all know the story. And 10 years later, after a lot happening in the mobile phone market, Nokia launched the first camera phone. And how did Kodak react to this camera phone? They said the pictures are grainy, they're shaky. You're never going to able to get a real camera photo out of that. People are always going to want to have their crisp, clear 24 exposures of film. There's artistic value, the artists love it, and blah, blah, blah. And a few years later, they're facing bankruptcy. They tried desperately to change and adapt and start making digital cameras, but in the end it failed. So that's how Kodak reacted. This is Tower Records. Let's look at the record industry. In 1986, they had $250 million in revenue in the US. And then a tiny company came in 1999, and it was called Napster. I don't know if you remember this. Maybe you're too young. I remember I was in high school as well. And I remember the first song on download was 007. And I was like, it was really amazing, when I had it, because it was really clear, and it was like 3 megabytes. I was like, whoa, how is it possible? And how did Tower Records react to that? What did they say when they saw MP3s? They said MP3s will never replace vinyl because vinyl has this richness and depth of sound, and people are always going to go for quality over this crappy, shitty, electronic, digital music. Well, bye-bye Tower Records. In 2004, they went bankrupt. And this is, I don't know if you heard about it, it's called the post office. You're quite young, but a little bit before your age, before you were born. If you wanted to send a message, say to Colombia, then you had to go to this thing called the post office. You had to have a physical pen. You have to write on something called a piece of paper. And then you have to go there. And you have to get in line. You have to pull a little queue ticket, stand in line, and then you have to talk to this old woman behind the glass desk. You have to buy something called envelope. You have to lick it physically. And then you have to give it to her, and then depending on how lucky you are, maybe 2-3 weeks later, the person got it there. They opened it. Obviously, I'm joking now, but today we have something a little bit better. And in China, they're even, with WeChat, it's just amazing. Has anybody heard of this company called Nokia? It's this little Finnish company. In 2008, obviously with the launch of this first camera phone, they completely took the market. In 2008, they had 40% of the market of the smartphones. Of course, everyone knows the story again. 2007, the iPhone came. And how did Nokia react? This is Anssi Vanjoki, the chief strategist in 2009. He said, Apple has attracted attention at first, but they have still remained a niche manufacturer. And that will be in the mobile phones as well. That's the chief strategist at Nokia. And today, 2013 had 3.4. How many people have a Nokia phone by raise of hands today? Really? No one? How many has Apple phone? Yeah, okay, well, everyone knows. So there's no Nokias here. Yeah, gasoline cars versus Tesla. Everyone knows this. Tesla Roadster was launched in 2008. And how did the gas car manufacturers react? What did they say about the electric car? It's not a real car. No one wants to buy this shit car. It doesn't have the range. It doesn't even look like a car. It takes too long to charge. There's no charging stations, and blah, blah, blah. And 4 years later, 2012, Tesla launched the Model S. And Motor Trend called it the car of the year. Car and Driver called it the year of the century. And in 2013, let's look at some of the sales. So the gasoline car manufacturer said, no one's going to buy this car. So if you look in the US, 2013, Model S sold 17,650 cars, beating Porsche, Mercedes, BMW, Audi, and Lexus. And I can't remember, maybe some here now, they launched after that the dual S, the dual motor, so all-wheel drive car. It had longer range. It went, anyone know, 0 to 60, how quick? 2.9 seconds, very close. Then they had the Model X, which was launched, I think, about 6 months ago, or even less. Anyone saw this launch on YouTube? No? Falcon wing door. It's like completely revolutionary car, super cool. And in 2017, they're going to launch Model E, which is the Roadster. I didn't make this. This is Elon Musk. He wanted to have the sex thing, because it's cool. They're not fucking boring. This is the new generation. So the Roadster was a high-performing car, very high cost, low volume, and you have the Model S, which was mid-priced and mid-volume, and you have going to have the Model E, which is going to be high volume, low price. Have you heard about this one, Model E? Yeah. They're going to have to build a gigafactory. Do you have heard about the gigafactory? Yeah. It's a battery factory. I think they're putting it up in, Texas, or is it Nevada? It costs $5 billion, this factory. And Panasonic is putting in $2 billion. And this battery factory alone is going to produce more batteries than all other battery factories in the world today. And they're going to make like 20 of them. So that tells you about the ambition. So they wanted to launch Model E, but then Ford said, you're not allowed to use Model E because we have the copyright for Model E, because they made like a Model E like 1,000 years ago. And Tesla, they just gave out all the patents. They said for the supercharging stations, they're not going to have any patents on it. They said, okay, everyone can use our patents for everything. And Ford says, you're not allowed to use Model E. So they called it the Model 3 instead. That's the solution. We can go a little bit back. Actually, I noticed this is actually, I thought it was an old picture, but there's actually a car there, so it's not. Someone told me later. So this is the horse and carriage. Let's pretend this is like 100 years ago, before the car came. And what did the horse and carriage manufacturers say when the first automobile was there? How did they react to it? How did the people react? Well, they said no one's going to buy this infernal combustion engine. It makes noise. It's smelly. There is no roads. No one's going to buy these death machines. Trust in the horse. It's worked for you. It's worked for 1,000 years. Why does anybody want a car like this, right? And the funny thing is, the horse and buggy manufacturers, they were really good positioned to take this complete market. They knew how to make roadworthy vehicles. They know how to make springs. They had all the wheel manufacturers. They had all the networks. They had everything. They said no. So that's how the status quo reacts to new technology, right? So that was just the backdrop of Bitcoin. So what they all do, they underestimate the new technology and they overestimate the old technology. You see it time and again. So that was sort of an introduction to, now I want to talk about Bitcoin. How many have you heard about Bitcoin before? How many owns Bitcoin? One person, good. So this person is Andreas Antonopoulos. He's like super intelligent, fantastic, highly charismatic genius. He talks a lot about Bitcoin. He wrote the book Mastering Bitcoin. It's 300 pages long, and he said himself, at the time the book launched, it was obsolete, and he has to update it every 3 months to just keep up with what is Bitcoin. It changes so fast. So I have now maybe, I don't know, 20 minutes left or something to explain what Bitcoin is. So that's impossible, but I'll try. I also want to thank, if you're interested in Bitcoin, you should check out all the resources. There's so many things on the internet. Go to bitcoin.org, check out the podcasts, Bitcoin Knowledge Podcast by Trace Mayer, Let's Talk Bitcoin, Epicenter Bitcoin. Go to Twitter, subscribe to Eric Voorhees. A lot of cool people. So check it out. So what is Bitcoin? Does anybody know what is Bitcoin? Someone say? Yeah.
It's a decentralized currency run by computers on a foundation of a blockchain technology. And it's extremely volatile.
It's going to take over. It's really good. So he knows a lot. So people would say, what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is digital money, right? It's money for the internet. It's money like euros and dollars, but it's not owned by government. You can send it from any point in the world to any other point in the world instantly, securely, for free, or for very little fee. The largest transaction on the Bitcoin network today was one person sending $150 million from one account to the other. It was done in 1 second, and it was 0 fees. And that alone explains or tells you a little bit about how disruptive Bitcoin will be in international remittance and transfer alone. Because this is impossible with any other currency. So Bitcoin is money for the internet, right? But that's just the start. That's just the beginning. It's like when people said in the 1990s, if you can go back to 1991 or 92, do you remember what did you do then? Were you or maybe too young? Really? You're that young? Jesus. Fuck. Sorry. Okay, scratch that. Pretend you're in now. Okay, so I'll tell my recollection of the early 90s. I remember the first time I went on the internet, actually. It's kind of cool. So back then people said, so what is the internet? So the @ sign, is that internet? No, Tracy, that's email. Okay, so what is the IP address? What is this www, which is HTTP? People didn't know, right? They had no idea. And back then, if you ask, what can the internet do for you? They probably say, oh yeah, you can use this IRQ, you can send messages, you can send email, or you can make a website with your cookbook, That's the imagination people had back then. No one could ever foresee Facebook, Twitter, e-commerce, all this. I mean, you can do 1,000 examples. Right? So the same thing now. Email is one thing you can do on the internet. Digital money is one thing you can do with Bitcoin. Right, so what you said, it's a decentralized, distributed network of trust. That's what it is. So internet is an internet, right? It's not email. It's a network with communication, yeah? And Bitcoin is also a network. It's a network of trust. It's a protocol. So this is a centralized system. This is how things function today. It has one center of control. This is, for example, a bank, Google, Facebook, Amazon, a hospital, Taobao, whatever, right? And so what do these institutions do? They collect information, right? About us, the consumers, the customers, right? So they collect things like if you're a bank, they have your money. If you're Google, they basically have everything. They have all the Gmail, they have the emails, they have the search history, you have your pictures. If you're Amazon, you have your search history on Amazon, they have your credit cards. Your bank has your actual money, your hospital has your your health records, it has everything. The government as well, right? So they store information about the customer, about us, right? So we give them this information and we trust them to keep it safe, to protect it, right? We give them power because we give them information, we give them money, right? That's power. So we give these institutions power and we trust them to keep it safe, right? So basically we're telling them, we're hoping these people are superheroes, right? You give them the money, you give them the trust, you give them all the information, and you hope that they will not, nothing will happen to them. But there's one problem with this kind of a system. It has one center, so there's one center to attack. You know, it's very easy for hackers, you know. They have one huge database, they can attack one target. That's the problem with the system today. So for example, let's say you swipe your card, you go to Family Mart, you go to Trader Joe's, you go to McDonald's, you go to the place you want to buy the organic tea and the apples and the oranges. And when you swipe your credit card, you basically give all information to these people, right? To every point where you use your credit card, you're giving away your keys to your money. You're allowing them to take this, and you're trusting them. Every time you use your credit card, you're basically authorizing a pull transaction. You're saying, here's my code, here's my passwords. You cannot pull from the account, and you say, oh, you can pull 2 RMB for a banana, but they can pull more. So that's a potential problem. Bitcoin is, like you said, is a decentralized, distributed system. So it's decentralized, so there's no one center of control. You can't attack one point. Like the internet, how are you going to shut down the internet? It's not centralized. If the whole internet server was in one place, you can easily shut it down. But with Bitcoin, you cannot. So that's the invention of Bitcoin. Before Bitcoin, people did not know how to solve the problem of decentralizing trust, right? With huge amounts of information, you have to basically, like a city 2,000 years ago, you had a city, you have to build a wall around the city, and you have to have guards, right? Or like a bank vault. You have to protect that one center, right? And that was always a problem, and the invention of Bitcoin is to solve that. You spread the trust in the system. So we don't need these honest gatekeepers anymore, right? It's like this, what you say, who watches the watchman, right? Have you heard that? You have watchmen, but who watches them? Well, you don't need them anymore with Bitcoin, gone. So Bitcoin is the first decentralized distributed network of trust. And it proves trust 100%. It's basically like a public ledger that is secure, anonymous, and transparent. And that's when you say, well, it's a system which is transparent and anonymous and secure. People think, well, is that possible? It's anonymous and it's open, it's decentralized, but that cannot be secure. But because people think in their minds, security means one center, right? That's why people don't really have problems to understand it. It's something completely new. Mathematicians and cryptographers have worked to try to solve this problem for decades. With the invention of Bitcoin in 2009, this problem was solved. So that's the invention of Bitcoin. So let's look at how much time do I have, Bala? Does someone check the time? Whatever. 9 minutes left, or? Ooh, okay. So let's look at the normal currency, which is called fiat currency. This is basically money which is issued by the government and has value from the government. It's not like a gold coin, which has value in itself. It's just like a $100 bill. That's a fiat currency. They use something called fractional reserve bank. I'll speak quicker now. Fractional reserve bank, which basically means if you put 100 RMB in the bank account and there's 10% reserve rate, the bank can take 90 RMB and lend it to someone else. And then that person can write a check to someone else, which deposits that money to another bank account, puts 90 in that bank. The bank can take 90% of the 90, which is 81, give it to someone else. The 100 RMB you put in the bank, you actually keep 10 of it, but in the system it's 1,000 RMB, right? So if you go to your bank, like look at Greece now, if everyone in Greece, everyone in China, everyone wherever goes to the bank and say, I want my money back, the bank cannot give it to you. Because there's more money in circulation. It's all lent out. And governments, they can trade money out of nothing. Before you had the gold standard, right? So if you had one unit of currency, you had to be backed by gold. But that was removed. So let's say before, a government or a country wanted to go to war, they have to raise taxes, right? And then now there's not a problem anymore. The US government, it goes to the Federal Reserve, and they say, well, we need money. Please print $1 billion or $1 trillion. And they make something called government treasury bonds. They give it to the Federal Reserve, exchange it for money. And now the government owes the Federal Reserve $1 billion or $1 trillion. And the Federal Reserve is separate from it's not actually federal, it's a private institution. So now the government owes money to this private institution, but the private institution is somehow owned by the government, and they have to pay interest. It's kind of complicated. Every year, in the US alone, the US government pays about $500 billion in interest rates alone. It's just weird. They just create money out of nothing. So they can just go to war. You need more money? Usually you have a company, you have to get money in, you're selling stuff, and you can spend money. If you're a government, you can just create money. So also they can do, the quantitative easing, money supply, unpredictable. There's a group of people who decides it. Fiat is inflation-based system because they can just create money, which means everyone else's money is less worth because there's more money. Which means there's a lot of debt in the world, right? You hear about this, even you have Donald Trump going on about the US debt. He's talking about this debt, which it's sovereign debt in America, and there's also debt to other countries. Bitcoin is different. Bitcoin is an asset in the network. It's yours. If you have $10 in the Bitcoin network, no one can take it and put it anywhere else and break it up and make it into a lot more. It's just there. It's yours. If you want the money, you can take it. Everyone who owns Bitcoin, they go and they can get the money. So it's an asset like this. It's not leveraged, and the issuing of Bitcoin is predictable. Everyone knows at all times how much Bitcoin is in the system. This is what the Bitcoin network looks like, just a bunch of servers. Anyone know how powerful the Bitcoin network is? It's the most powerful computer network in the history of humanity. The Bitcoin is, in 2013, 250 times quicker than the top 500 supercomputers combined. If Google takes all their servers and uses it to mine for Bitcoin, they are less than 1% of the Bitcoin network. And if you want to try to hack Bitcoin, you have to have more than 51% of the power. So you need more than 50 Googles to even try to fuck with Bitcoin. So good luck. So again, just to sum up, so internet isn't just electronic mail. Bitcoin isn't just electronic money. Well, and what can you do with Bitcoin? So we have internet, which is this network where you can have free communication. And then you have Bitcoin, which is this other network, which you can have trust now. It's a new way of distributing trust. So what can you do? You can do money. We talked about it. What about banking? So today in the world, there's about 1 billion people with access to international finance and credit. 1 billion. There's 6 billion people who don't have this. And there's about 2 billion people who live in cash-based and barter-based societies. They're trading goods in cash. In places like China or Brazil or Africa, let's say in Brazil, there's people. Brazil is a huge country, and there's people that live. The nearest bank is 100 kilometers upriver on a canoe. How are you going to put a bank there? There's no bank that's going to go there. But maybe they want some money because they want to, if they can get some money, they can buy something, buy corn, invest. They can set up a business. Right now, they don't have access to this. With Bitcoin, all you need is a cell phone tower. You take a helicopter, you fly it in, you drop a cell phone tower, which is powered by solar, and you have a banking system with Bitcoin. Payments you can use. Today, there's 390 billion transactions every year, non-cash based. So if you swipe your card, you buy something, there's a little teeny percentage which goes to the credit card companies, and that money goes to, let's say, Family Mart. It goes to Family Mart. This money is used by Family Mart to buy stuff, also to pay their employees. The employees get this money. They buy something, swipe it again. The same money is moved around in the system, and at every point where you're swiping, you're giving money to the credit card companies. With Bitcoin, it's all for free, or a very, very small fee. You can do micropayments. So let's say you can send 1,000th of an RMB to a farmer in Mexico. Try to go to your bank, your ICBC bank here, and say, hey, I'm going to send 10 cents to Nicaragua. How is it going to, It's impossible. With Bitcoin, you can do it, no problem. Yeah, that's micropayments. International money transfers. So today, there's about $500 billion which are transferred to across the world. So let's say you're a Somalian worker in the US and you send money home to your family. Every year, there's about $500 billion. And the fee on this is $74 billion. $74 billion goes to Western Union, Visa, all these companies. It's between 5 and 30, 35% fee. And the poorer the country, the higher the fee. Right? And then we also send aid to poor countries. Every year there's $150 billion in aid, which rich countries give to the poor countries. And who do we give to in the poor countries? The governments. Some are they 100% honest? No, not probably some of them. So we give to the richest, and we hope that some of this money trickles down to the poorest, right? So you can take all that money and give directly to the people that needs it, directly to the people on the ground, as long as they have a cell phone. And then you can take $74 billion from Western Union and Visa and give it back to the poor. Lending, borrowing, funding. I mean, how important is borrowing money if you want to set up a business or do anything? It's really important, right? Venture capital and stuff. Well, Bitcoin, you have the possibility to send money to anyone you want. You know, but Twitter, 4 minutes left. Jesus, okay. Twitter. So with Twitter, it started a revolution, right, in many countries. If you support a political candidate, what can you do? You can give them like a like, right? You can give them like a poke or like a heart now on Twitter. So you can basically say, yeah, I'll support you. But then what more? There's an app called, I can't remember, is it BitGive? Basically, you can give 1 RMB to a political candidate in Mexico, if you like him, right? So now you have the grassroots movement, right? Ron Paul in America, liberal, from the the Liberal Party, Independence Party, super popular among the people in the grassroots, but he's never allowed in because he doesn't fit in the political system. And the people in the centralized system decide, because they're the gatekeepers, and they put all the rules, and we don't like him, so he's not going to come in, right? That was the idea, by the way, behind the fact that the Federal Reserve is not part of the government. Like you have state and religion, right? Should mix them. It's a bad idea. Let's do secular. Same thing with government and power. They thought, well, let's separate Federal Reserve and government because government manipulates money, but now money manipulates government. So that's the financial things. This is just some, this is like saying just email. This is just 2 examples. There's thousands of examples here. These are non-financial vote. You can do voting. You now have a system of trust. So you can vote 100% fraud proof. Yeah. And proof of existence, which is, for example, if you make content, you make a document, you make a song, you make a really cool Twitter message which a lot of people like. Now there's all this copyright, who actually made this. With Bitcoin network, you can register as the owner of certain content, and then you are the owner of that content. It's impossible to change. Everyone can see it. Block Verify, this is a company which it basically tracks things like blood diamonds and diamonds. It tracks all different goods, fake pharmaceuticals and fake goods, so that it's impossible to have all this stuff come into the real goods. You track everything. And the Bitcoin system proves what is correct and what is not correct. Gems, you can send securely messages. Impossible to break this decryption. One name, like right now you walk around with a passport, right, to prove your identity. Who are you? And you have to go in your stupid bag and pull out a red book, and then with the name and everything. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, we live in the age of computers, and we have a little. What if you lose it? If you lose your credit card, someone can use it. Just a couple of weeks ago, my card was hacked after a holiday in Vietnam. Right? Someone just took my card, copied it, and now they can use it. With Bitcoin, you cannot do that anymore. Contracts is quite interesting. So you have, this lawyers. For example, you have, let's say you have a will. You want to give money to your children if you die, or you have other contracts. Let's say if you want to send money from A to B, if criteria A, B, C, D, E, whatever criteria you want, right? It's the 1st of January, and the Nasdaq index is in 2,500, and blah 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 blah. You can set those things up so that 1 minute. Oh well. You can set it up so that thing goes through whatever happens. You set up a thing, so you don't need intermediaries anymore. You don't need escrow anymore. You set it up on the network, and that thing is going to go through 100%. You can transfer ownership in cars. There's something called airlock. So you pay with the Bitcoin for your Airbnb apartment, and you use the same password to pay for that thing to open the lock in the apartment, because it knows that the person who paid for the money is the person who goes there. It's kind of cool stuff. And we have something called distributed autonomous corporations. So right now, the only people who can own money is people and organizations, right? But with Bitcoin, machines can own money. So let's say you set up an artificial intelligence system which writes software, and if the software is well, let's say it sells advertising, it writes news articles, based on whatever it searches. If a lot of people read it, he can afford to buy more server space because he gets more revenue from let's say advertisers. So you have them competing into artificial intelligence systems which has their own bank accounts. And that's the thing. Richard Branson, he said, what is money? Money is to make things happen, and that's what Bitcoin does. It's information, it's power. It makes things happen. But if internet is the communication, it sends information from A to B. Bitcoin sends power from A to B, right? Think about how powerful that is. Think about what the internet did to communication in the world. Now the same thing is likely to happen with Bitcoin. The power this time. I think we're out of time. I have a lot more slides, but we'll just stop it here. Just some comments about Bitcoin. Bill Gates, I think Bitcoin is technological tour de force. Al Gore saying basically, you can replace functions of the government. The invention of Bitcoin is as important as the combustion engine. Eric Schmidt, those are other things didn't say. So Bitcoin is the first digital asset you cannot copy. So everything online you can copy. Bitcoin you cannot copy. First digital asset in the human history you cannot copy. Thomas Jefferson. He didn't say it about Bitcoin probably, but he said that the issuing power should be taken from the bank and restored to the people, which it originally was. Yeah, so I think.
Yeah, we have time for one or two questions.
Oh.
Right, I actually have 2 questions.
Oh.
Thank you for a very interesting.
I just flipped through.
Personally, I have huge interest in Bitcoin,
Cool.
but even more in the blockchain
Ah.
technology, which is really what Bitcoin is based on. With your position in Innovation Norway, nowadays we see blockchain surging in finance, banking, public databases, and ownership. Do you know if any Norwegian companies are in fact pursuing any blockchain technology with your position in Innovation Norway? Secondly, my question would be in regards of disruption. As in Norway, we are obviously good in maritime and shipping industry, whereas now we have the 3D printing, which is disrupting the whole production industry in the whole world. So if you say like China was the production house of the world and you needed to ship things to the rest of the world, now you can more or less 3D print everything around the world. What is the perception and how does Innovation Norway position themselves protecting the Norwegian business in regards to this?
No, it's cool. You know what? Innovation Norway, I mean, it's like, I don't think any company, whenever I mention Bitcoin, people don't know what it is. you know. And it's like, I know Nordea. There's like there was a one back here. Yeah, this one. So there's a company called R3CV, which is a startup company, and they now have 22 banks they're cooperating with. HSBC, Commerzbank, Citi, Nordea is also one of those. So they're doing something there. But other companies in Norway, I mean, I'm sure there's some Bitcoin companies, but I think most people they don't really know what it is. They don't understand, they don't see the wave that is going to hit them. And the banks are realizing it because I have thousands of examples, like Kodak, Tesla, they all know now, oh shit, we can't just put our head in the sand and pretend it's not happening anymore, right? Bankers, they might be corrupt, crooked, and useless, but they're quite smart. So they understand what's happening. So I think they're doing it. The second question was, because, I mean, Innovation Norway, no offense, but I mean, we're just people, right? And they're kind of like a bank themselves. They loan out money in Norway. Here, people are, I don't know. I mean, no one has ever in Innovation Norway ever said anything about Bitcoin. Right. I heard myself say it, but, you know. I asked the IT guy, hey, what do you think about Bitcoin? Yeah, it's cool. Okay. You know, so no one knows. Sorry, the second thing was what?
In regards to 3D printing
and
shipping.
Well, I mean, 3D printing is, well, you know, someone called 3D printing the third industrial revolution. First, it was the steam engine, which was the beginning, and then it was Henry Ford with mass production, right? Economies of scale, and then 3D printing is the democratization of manufacturing. So you take it away from the big centralized manufacturers, powerhouses, and you give it to the people. Same thing with, it's kind of like similar with Bitcoin, right? And the issuing power is no longer with the banks, now it's with Bitcoin. And it's for free, you know, you don't have to pay anymore. And all the poor people are invited to join. I had a longer presentation with all this stuff. Actually, this is the second part, it's all about that. So it's really, again, I've messed up the time. But yeah, this thing is kind of like a sum up. So this is exponential growth of technology, right? So this sort of sums up a little bit. That's my last slide now. So let's say this is Kodak on the red one. You know, this is the technological evolution of Kodak, right? Very slow, nothing's really happening. Same thing with the banks. I mean, how much innovation happened in the banks last 20 years, except for hedge funds and, I don't know, some schemes to grab the money as much as they can. And then you had Nokia, which jumped on exponential. So first things become digital, and then Kodak, it doesn't need film, it doesn't need paper anymore. Those things just disappears, whole industries disappear. And then the growth is first deceptive, because first it doesn't look like there's anything here. The first black and white camera, the first digital camera was took 30 black and white pictures. It had 0.01 megapixel, and you started on cassette tapes in 1976. And the management and Kodak said, well, okay, this is useless. No one's going to want to, like everyone else, no one's going to, why would anyone want to have this? It's 0.01 megapixels, it's shit. Okay, but then 0.01 becomes 0.02, becomes 0.04, and then it's deceptive, you know? It just doesn't, nothing happens for a while. Then it hits the single digit barrier. 1 megapixel becomes 2 megapixel, becomes 4 megapixels, and they're like, holy shit, something's happening here. And suddenly 4 becomes 8, becomes 16, right? And what did they do? It's deceptive, and then it becomes from initially deceptive to visually disruptive. And this is how do they react? First they ignore it, ha ha ha, Bitcoin, it's just shit, the cars, you know, no one's gonna want to drive these shit cars. They laugh about it, ha ha ha, you know, oh, nice electrical car, Tesla, you know. And then they realize, oh shit, something's happening here. They'll start to fight them, and then they lose. And that's industry after industry after industry. If you try to compete with an exponential organization, and you know, you're doing the status quo, you know, you're screwed. So I think that's, yeah. Jesus. Okay, thank you.